still giving the talk because that's what I do and that's what's important. So, how many of you are familiar with sprouting already? Okay. So here's the magic about sprouting. Sprouts are raw food, and they are living food, and they are the original superfood. So, and I say that, and I'm going to repeat it. I see people just coming in right now as well, so I'm going to let them come in. I'm going to just repeat that powerful commentary again. So, hello everybody. So, sprouts are the original superfood. So you can grow sprouts without soil, without sunshine, without fertilizer in days, and therefore you can do it on your own kitchen countertop. So that's what makes it amazing. And when I moved to the desert, and I live in the Mojave Desert, I had been raw vegan for 20 plus years. So I knew about sprouting, I had been sprouting, but I always thought of sprouts as a garnish or as a side dish. And then the shift came to me when I had no other access to food, that sprouts were vegetables that you could grow at home, that they grow in 5 days. And here's like some of the other magical parts. The sprouts contain up to 100 times more nutrients than mature vegetables, because they are the meristematic stem cells of the plants. So if you think about them small, they're very powerful because there's nothing extra in there. They have the endosperm, they have the embryo, they're enzymatically active, and they contain up to 100 times the nutrients of mature vegetables. They're really powerful from that front. Now, when I looked at sprouts before as a garnish or a side dish, I knew that there was something special about them. But in this country, sprouts have been relegated to a side dish or not at all. And that's because there was no money behind sprouts. So if you go into Whole Foods or you go into Publix or Albertsons, 99%, 98% of what they're selling in the supermarket is in a bag, in a box, in a carton, in a jar, in a container, and it has additives and preservatives, and it's been pasteurized and baked and denatured. Sprouts are fresh, and they are an entire living organism in a fresh state. So in a living state. So they're enzymatically active. This is a living food that contains every single amino acid to form complete proteins. They contain soluble and insoluble fiber, and they contain up to thousands of phytochemicals. So these phytochemicals are not part of the standard nutrition label of macronutrients, but these are the antioxidants. These are the beta-carotenes, the quadenoids, the anthocyanidins. These are the glucosinolates. This is the magic and the medicine of the plant that normally never gets by the first week of its life, because they're growing the plants and then they're processing them. So the way that I look at sprouts is, number one, sprouts are vegetables, and vegetables are food. So you're at a vegan wellness retreat. So in a way, I'm preaching to the choir. So you guys know that plant-based is good, vegan is good. Now, what makes sprouts unique is that the average vegetable is traveling 2,000 miles across the country till it gets to your grocery store. And so it's still a vegetable, it's still fresh, it's still better than eating the processed things in the boxes and the cans, but it's not as fresh as having a countertop garden. And that was my big epiphany. So when I moved to the desert, not only was I in an environmental desert, I was in a food desert. And I had no access to supermarkets, health food stores, farmers markets. So I was left upon my own devices to grow my own food. And that's when I got the idea and I got the download that sprouts were vegetables, sprouts were vitamins and minerals, and sprouts were medicine. So when I say they're vitamins and minerals, a lot of people are taking supplements, they're doing protein powders, they're putting all this foreign thing because their natural diet is deficient or marketing has convinced them that they are not getting enough in their diet naturally. But if you want to get extra protein, you can take a protein powder, or you can put a scoop of sprouts into your smoothie, or you can even juice them. But the sprouts contain all of the essential amino acids to form the proteins that you need, the antioxidants that you need. And then there's this whole level of medicine. So there's research, thousands of peer-reviewed published papers on the medicinal properties of sprouts. You know, I was giving a talk a few weeks ago, and someone raised their hand and they said, "You don't have to tell me about sprouts. I just got back from Hippocrates Wellness, and I was paying $500 a day, and the main treatment was they were giving me sprouts. So I was eating sprouts there." And so there's a lot of people that are aware of this, but there's also 2,000 peer-reviewed published papers on the medicinal properties of sprouts. How sprouts can help regulate insulin levels in diabetics. How sprouts can scavenge free radicals and reduce oxidative stress for people, you know, with heart challenges. How sprouts can detoxify benzene and air pollutants from the lungs. So a lot of people, whether they smoke cigarettes or smoke other stuff, or they've been around forest fires, or they live in an urban environment where they're inhaling exhaust and brake dust, all of these things actually can accumulate in the body and in the lungs. And there's something about how sprouts work through the system, and they cross the blood-brain barrier, and they upregulate these antioxidants to cause an accelerated detoxification of these pollutants, and even the chemicals associated with microplastics, they help free those and release those from the body. So when you're looking at a sprout, and I have a little picture here from my book, when you're looking at these little sprouts, you know, they're foreign. People don't even know what they are, but these are just seeds that are germinating. And a seed is a complete living organism in a dormant state. And when you add water, you are co-creating the vegetable as part of the natural process, the circle of life. By you adding the water, you are triggering a germination process to cause a seed to go through a metabolic process and turn into a vegetable. And that vegetable, the reason why it doesn't need soil, sunshine, or fertilizer is because it was divinely designed to germinate without any of those things. In darkness, they actually will germinate in light, but they can germinate in the dark. And in the first stage of life, they're either germinating in the intestines of an animal, you know, or in the soil as the plant just is thinking about how it's going to reproduce. The fact that we can eat them, I really think it's nature's cheat code. It's the secret. And when I was writing the sprout book, There we go. When I was writing the Sprout book, it was a miracle that I discovered or rediscovered, but I couldn't believe it. But then I found out that in ancient civilizations, the Egyptians, at the time they were building the pyramids with technology that has been lost. Like, they still don't even know how those pyramids were built with 80-ton structures. They knew about sprouting. And there were seeds that were found that were over 1,200 years old that still germinate. So if we think about our lives, to me, everything I put in my mouth is a life or death decision. It's a choice, right? I could be drinking Starbucks, I could be having McDonald's, right? Or I could be eating Sprouts. And so anytime I take a breath and I tune in to what can I consume that is going to serve this human transport vehicle for my soul and my spirit, the answer, inevitably, consistently, persistently, is Sprout. So I'm sharing that with you in this instance because you're not going to hear about this on TV. You're not going to see a Super Bowl ad for sprouting, right? You're just not going to see it. So this is something that is kind of brewing and breeding. But since I wrote the Sprout book, hundreds of thousands of people around the world are using whatever technology they can to sprout. And what I saw was sprouts were so ignored in the United States that there hadn't been any improvement to sprouting in hundreds of years. So I looked at, okay, what can I do? Not only can I write a book, but can I raise the standard for sprouting seeds? So I gave a keynote at the International Sprouting Association meeting, and I talked to all the sprout growers, the seed growers, and I realized that everyone needed to be consuming more sprouts. And so now, what we've done is we've made something that was prettier to use because everyone loves beauty. Beauty is what attracts us. But more importantly, the functional components of it, right? How can you make something that's sanitary? How can you make something that's safe? And how can you make something that functions on a hardware perspective? So I spent a few years designing a next generation sprouting kit. And then, as I was researching the book and beyond, I was ordering seeds. And it turns out that not all seeds